Callie Thompson pressed her lips together as she squinted at the faint lines of stitching. Her fingers, bleeding slightly from the countless pinpricks, endured since dawn. The afternoon light was fading, but she refused to light a lantern, yet kerosene cost money. And money was something she had precious little of since Daniel's passing 3 months ago. Outside her small cabin, the harsh Wyoming Territory wind of 1875 rattled the shutters as if to remind her just how alone she truly was. "Mama," Sarah, her youngest at 6 years old, tugged at her skirt. "I'm hungry." Callie set down her sewing and smoothed her daughter's wild blonde hair, so much like her father's had been. "Just a little longer, sweetheart. I need to finish Mrs. Harrison's mending before supper time." 8-year-old Mary watched solemnly from the corner where she was supposed to be practicing her letters. "Are we poor now, Mama?" The question struck Callie's heart like an arrow. She had been trying to shield her daughters from the harsh reality that had befallen them since the fever took Daniel, but children saw more than adults gave them credit for. "We're getting by," she answered carefully. "And we have each other. That's what matters most." The truth was far more precarious. With winter approaching in the Wyoming Territory, their small homestead outside of Cottonwood Springs was barely hanging on. The vegetable garden had yielded less than hoped, and the small herd of cattle Daniel had been building had been sold off one by one to pay debts after his passing. Only 2 milk cows remained, along with their old mare and a few chickens. Taking in mending and sewing for the townspeople had been Callie's only way to bring in what little money they had. She charged less than she should, afraid to lose the business to Mrs. Peterson, who had a proper shop in town. Tonight, she was racing to finish a set of repairs for the banker's wife before morning. A sudden pounding at the door made all 3 Thompson women jump. Visitors were rare this far out, especially as dusk approached. "Behind me, girls," Callie whispered, reaching for Daniel's old shotgun propped by the door. Her heart hammered wildly as she called out, "Who's there?" "Samuel Adler, madam. Sorry to trouble you, but my wagon's thrown a wheel about a half-mile back. My daughters and I could use some assistance, if you're willing." Callie hesitated, shotgun still in hand as she cracked open the door. The man standing on her porch looked trail-worn but respectable, tall and broad-shouldered, with a weather-beaten face that spoke of years under the open sky. His hat was in his hands, revealing dark hair streaked with premature silver at the temples. Behind him stood 2 young girls, perhaps 9 and 11, wearing dresses that had clearly seen better days. "We saw your chimney smoke," he explained. "I can pay for any trouble." The mention of payment made up Callie's mind. "Come in, Mr. Adler. You've caught us just before supper, simple as it is." The man nodded gratefully and ushered his daughters inside. "This is Emma and Charlotte. Girls, mind your manners." The older girl, Charlotte, gave a small curtsy while Emma stared openly at Callie's daughters, who peered back with equal curiosity from behind their mother's skirts. "I'm Callie Thompson. These are my daughters, Mary and Sarah." Samuel Adler's eyes took in the humble cabin, the neatly swept floor, the carefully mended curtains, and the pile of sewing work on the table. "You're alone here, Mrs. Thompson." "A widow," she answered simply, setting aside the shotgun but keeping it within reach. "My husband passed this spring." Something in his expression softened. "I'm sorry to hear that. My Catherine's been gone 3 years now." An understanding passed between them, the knowledge of what it meant to carry on alone for the sake of children who still needed a parent. "We're headed for Silverton," he continued. "I've got work waiting there at the Silver Creek Ranch. Good foreman position." Callie nodded, turning to stir the pot of bean soup hanging over the fire. "You're welcome to stay until morning. My barn isn't much, but it'll shelter you and your daughters for the night." I can't offer much help with the wagon wheel, though. I can manage the repairs if I have shelter to work. I've got tools, just need daylight and a dry spot." His eyes fell on her sewing again. "You do fine work, Mrs. Thompson." "It keeps food on the table," she replied, trying not to show how desperately she needed the income it provided. "Please sit. We'll share what we have." As Callie ladled the thin soup into bowls, she noticed the state of the Adler girls' clothing dresses that had been let out multiple times, hems frayed and sleeves patched. The younger one, Emma, had a dress several inches too short, revealing worn boots underneath. Samuel caught her glance and looked embarrassed. "Been a while since they've had proper clothes. Not much call for dressmaking on the trail, and I'm afraid I'm useless with a needle." Callie found herself saying, "I could help with that. I'm a seamstress by trade now." The girls' faces lit up, but their father shook his head. "That's kind, but we couldn't impose. We'll be on our way once the wheel's fixed." "It's no imposition if you're paying," Callie said practically, "and your daughters could use something sturdy for the journey ahead." Later that evening, after the children had been settled, the Thompson girls in their bed and the Adler girls on pallets near the hearth, Samuel stepped outside to check on his horses. Callie followed with a lantern. "Your girls seem sweet," she ventured. Samuel nodded, his face softening in the lantern light. "They are. Been hard on them, losing their mother and then being uprooted. Catherine knew how to make anywhere feel like home." He gestured at his wagon. "I've got some cloth in there, bought it in Cheyenne, thinking I'd find someone to make dresses once we reached Silverton. But if you're willing—" "I am," Callie said quickly. Too quickly, perhaps. But the prospect of proper payment for her skills was too tempting to refuse. The next morning, while Samuel worked on repairing his wagon wheel, Callie measured his daughters for new dresses. The bolt of calico he'd produced from his wagon was of good quality, a cheerful blue with tiny white flowers. "This is lovely fabric," she told Emma as she wrapped the measuring tape around the girl's waist. "It'll make a beautiful dress." "Pa says we need to look presentable when we get to Silverton," Charlotte explained seriously. "He's going to be an important man there." Emma nodded. "And he says maybe someday we'll have a new ma who can sew and cook and make things nice again." Charlotte hushed her sister sharply, but the words had already escaped. Callie pretended not to hear, though her cheeks warmed at the implication. Throughout the day, as Samuel worked on his wagon, Callie's fingers flew over the fabric. She hadn't had such fine material to work with in months, and despite herself, she took extra care with the stitching and details. The girls played together in the yard, the initial shyness giving way to the easy camaraderie of children. By afternoon, Samuel had fixed the wheel and came in to check on the progress. He stood in the doorway, watching silently as Callie held up the nearly completed first dress. "That's mighty fine work," he said finally. Callie smiled, unable to hide her pride in her craftsmanship. "Your girls deserve something nice. The journey ahead will be hard enough." He crossed the room to examine the tiny, even stitches and the careful detailing she'd added around the collar. "My Catherine would have approved. She always said clothes should bring joy, not just cover necessities." "A wise woman," Callie replied softly. Their eyes met briefly, and something passed between them, recognition, perhaps, of the shared burdens they carried. Evening came too quickly. The wagon was repaired, and the first dress was finished with the second well underway. Samuel insisted on helping with the evening chores, bringing in firewood and even managing to shoot a rabbit that had ventured too close to the garden, providing a welcome addition to their supper. After the meal, as the children played a game of cat's cradle by the fire, Samuel cleared his throat. "Mrs. Thompson, I've been thinking. It'll be another day at least before Charlotte's dress is finished." Callie nodded. "I'm working as quickly as I can." No, that's not what I meant. He looked uncomfortable. The truth is, I've noticed how hard you're working here all alone, and there's good land in Silverton, better opportunities than this rocky patch. Her spine stiffened. This rocky patch is my home, Mr. Adler. My husband and I built it together. Of course, I didn't mean, he sighed, running a hand through his hair. What I'm trying to say is, there's work for someone with your skills in Silverton. Real paying work, not just scraps from locals. The mine owner's wife was just saying they need a proper dressmaker for the ladies in town. Callie's hands stilled on her sewing. Are you suggesting I should sell my homestead and move to Silverton? I'm suggesting you consider it, he replied carefully. Winter's coming. It's hard country for a woman alone with young ones. The truth of his words stung, but pride kept her chin high. We've managed so far, Mr. Adler. He didn't press further, but the seed had been planted in Callie's mind. That night, after everyone was asleep, she sat by the dying fire and faced the reality of her situation. The mending work would dry up once winter made travel to town difficult. The food stores were meager, and the girls needed schooling that she could barely provide herself. By morning, she had made no decisions but had acknowledged the precariousness of their position. She worked diligently on Charlotte's dress, determined to finish it before nightfall. Samuel spent the day making repairs around Callie's homestead, fixing a loose shutter, reinforcing the chicken coop, and splitting enough firewood to last a week. He worked silently, efficiently, as if it were the most natural thing in the world to help a stranger. As the sun began to set, Callie called the girls in to try on their new dresses. Emma twirled in her blue calico, the skirt flaring around her ankles. It's the prettiest dress I've ever had, she declared. Charlotte was more reserved but clearly pleased as she smoothed her hands over the matching dress. Thank you, Mrs. Thompson. It's lovely. Samuel stood in the doorway, watching his daughters with a soft expression that made Callie's heart twist unexpectedly. You'll have dresses fit for joy, he said quietly, not just for necessity. The phrase caught Callie by surprise. That's an unusual way to put it. Something Catherine used to say, he explained, that clothes shouldn't just be practical, they should bring joy to the wearer. Callie nodded, understanding perfectly. It was why she had added the small embroidered flowers at the collars and the extra ruffle at the hem, though neither had been requested. That evening, as they sat around the fire after another simple but satisfying meal, the inevitable question arose. Will you be leaving tomorrow? Callie asked, trying to keep her voice neutral. Samuel exchanged a look with his daughters before answering. That was the plan. An uncomfortable silence fell. The children looked between the adults, sensing the tension. Unless, Samuel continued carefully, you've given any thought to what I suggested, about Silverton. Callie took a deep breath. I have thought about it, but this land is all we have left of Daniel. I can't just abandon it. You wouldn't have to, Samuel said, leaning forward. There are men looking for land to lease. You could keep ownership but let someone work it until you decide what you want in the long run. The possibility hadn't occurred to her. Is that common practice? Common enough. Especially for widows who can't work the land themselves but don't want to sell outright. Callie's mind raced with the implications. I would need time to arrange such things. Agreements would have to be drawn up. The offer from Silver Creek Ranch won't wait forever, Samuel admitted. But I could delay a week, maybe 2, if you're seriously considering it. Their eyes met across the table, and Callie saw something in his gaze, hope, perhaps, or a question left unspoken. Why would you do that? She asked softly. Samuel looked at their daughters, now playing together as if they'd known each other forever. Because I think it would be good for all of us, he answered simply. The next morning, instead of preparing to leave, Samuel hitched up his wagon and offered to take Callie into town to speak with potential lessees for her land, and to collect the payment owed for her mending work. It was a practical arrangement, but both adults were aware of the curious glances from townspeople as they arrived together with all four girls. Mrs. Harrison, the banker's wife, raised her eyebrows as she handed over payment for her mending. "I see you found yourself some company, Callie." "Mr. Adler is passing through," Callie explained, her cheeks warm. "His wagon needed repairs." "Of course," Mrs. Harrison replied with a knowing smile. "And these must be his daughters. My, what lovely dresses." "Mrs. Thompson made them," Emma announced proudly, twirling to show off the blue calico. "She's coming to Silverton with us because she can sew anything." Callie's embarrassment deepened. "Emma, I haven't decided anything yet." Samuel stepped in smoothly. "Mrs. Thompson is considering business opportunities in Silverton. She's quite talented, as you can see." Their errands took most of the day. The sheriff, a widower himself with grown children, expressed interest in leasing Callie's land and promised to visit the next day to discuss terms. The general store owner paid Callie for a month's worth of mending in advance when she mentioned she might be leaving the area. "Folks will miss your work," he told her frankly. "But can't say I blame you for looking elsewhere. It's a hard living out here for a woman alone." As they drove back to the homestead, the setting sun painted the prairie in gold and amber. The girls chattered excitedly in the back of the wagon, but Callie and Samuel sat in companionable silence, each lost in thought. "It went better than I expected," Callie finally said. "I never imagined Sheriff Jones would want to lease the land. Makes sense for him. His deputies can help work it, and it's close enough to town for convenience." Samuel glanced at her. "Does that make your decision easier?" she sighed, watching the familiar landscape roll by. "Easier, but not easy. This has been my home for 7 years. Every fence post, every floorboard has memories." "Memories travel with you," he said quietly. "The important ones, anyway." That night, after the children were asleep, Callie and Samuel sat on the porch steps, watching the stars emerge in the vast Wyoming sky. The autumn air was crisp, hinting at the winter to come. "Tell me about Silverton," Callie requested. "What kind of place is it?" Samuel smiled in the darkness. "Growing fast, but still decent. The silver mine brings in money, and that means people willing to pay for quality goods and services. There's a proper school, a church being built. It's the kind of place where someone with your skills could build a good business." "And the ranch you're going to?" "Silver Creek, one of the biggest in the territory. The owner, Mr. Callahan, is getting on in years. Needs a foreman he can trust to eventually take over running things." He hesitated. "There's a house that comes with the position. Nothing fancy but solid. 3 bedrooms, more than enough room." The implication hung in the air between them. Callie stared at the distant hills, silver in the moonlight. "Mr. Adler, are you suggesting an arrangement beyond business opportunities?" Samuel turned to face her, his expression earnest in the dim light. "I'm suggesting possibilities, Mrs. Thompson. I've been alone with my girls for 3 years, trying to be both father and mother. You've been doing the same for less time, but I expect you know the hardship of it." "I do," she admitted. "I'm not proposing marriage to a woman I've known 3 days," he clarified. "That would be foolishness. But I am suggesting that we might both benefit from proximity while we see if there's more to this connection I feel between us." Callie's heart beat faster. "Connection?" he smiled slightly. "Don't tell me you haven't felt it too, the way we work together. How our girls have taken to each other. The comfort of having another adult to share the burden, even for just these few days." She couldn't deny it. The house had felt more alive since the Adlers' arrival than it had in months. "I have felt it," she acknowledged softly. But feelings can be misleading when you've been alone too long. True enough, he agreed. Which is why I'm not asking for promises. Just a chance to see what might develop while you build your sewing business and I establish myself at Silver Creek. Callie looked at her small homestead, the garden she'd tended, the roof Daniel had repaired just before he fell ill. It represented security but also isolation, a place of memories but increasingly of struggle too. I need to think about it, she said finally. For my girl's sake, I can't make such a decision lightly. Samuel nodded, respecting her caution. Of course, but know that my offer stands. The following day, Sheriff Jones came as promised to inspect the property and discuss lease terms. He was fair in his offer, enough to give Callie a small cushion to establish herself elsewhere, with the agreement that she retained ownership and could return if Silverton didn't work out. It's a sensible arrangement, he told her as they shook hands on the deal. Land stays in your name, gets worked properly, and you have options for the future. As he was leaving, he nodded toward Samuel, who was showing the girls how to repair fence posts. Adler seems a decent sort. Known him long, just a few days, Callie admitted. The sheriff raised his eyebrows. Moving to the same town as a man you've known days, that's mighty trusting, Mrs. Thompson. It's a business decision, she insisted. Silverton needs a seamstress and I need better opportunities for my girls, if you say so. His expression softened. For what it's worth, I've heard good things about Silver Creek Ranch. Old man Callahan doesn't suffer fools, so if he hired Adler as foreman, the man must have something to him. After the sheriff departed, Callie sat at her table and wrote 2 lists: reasons to stay and reasons to go. The first list was short but powerful. Daniel's memory, familiar surroundings, independence. The second was longer, better schooling for the girls, more customers for her sewing, a fresh start, the possibility of companionship. She folded the paper and tucked it into her pocket as Samuel entered the cabin. Jones seemed pleased with the arrangement, he commented. Callie nodded. It's a fair deal. He'll take good care of the place. Samuel studied her face. You've made a decision, haven't you? I think I have, she said, her voice steadier than she felt. If your offer still stands, the girls and I would like to try Silverton. The smile that spread across his face warmed something inside her that had been cold since Daniel's death. Not the same feeling she'd had for her husband, but something new, a spark of possibility, of hope. The offer stands, he confirmed. We can leave as soon as you're ready. It took 3 days to prepare. Callie packed only what was essential: clothing, kitchenware, her sewing supplies, and the few precious mementos of Daniel she couldn't bear to leave behind. The furniture would stay with the homestead, as Jones had agreed to lease it furnished. On their last night in the cabin, Callie sat with her daughters on Daniel's old rocking chair, a girl on each knee, though they were really getting too big for such things. Are you excited about our new adventure? She asked them. Mary, ever the serious one, considered the question carefully. I'm sad to leave Papa's house, she admitted, but I want to go to a real school. Sarah was less conflicted. I like Emma and Charlotte, and Mr. Adler tells good stories. Callie hugged them close. We'll always remember Papa and the home he built for us. But sometimes, to honor someone's memory, we have to be brave enough to keep living the best way we can. Is Mr. Adler going to be our new Papa? Sarah asked suddenly. The question caught Callie off guard. No, sweetheart. Mr. Adler is a friend who's helping us move to a new town where I can find more sewing work. But you like him, Mary observed with the uncanny perception of children. You smile differently when he's around. Callie couldn't deny it. I do like him. He's a good man. But becoming someone's papa takes a long time and lots of love and trust. Like growing a garden, Sarah suggested. Exactly like that, Callie agreed, relieved at the simple analogy. It needs the right soil and plenty of care and patience. The journey to Silverton took nearly a week. They traveled in 2 wagon Samuels loaded with his possessions, and Callie's borrowed from Sheriff Jones to transport her things. The October weather held fair, with only one day of light rain that forced them to stop early and shelter under an outcropping of rocks. That evening, huddled around a small fire as the rain pattered outside their makeshift shelter, Samuel told stories of his time as a young cowhand in Texas. The girls listened, wide-eyed, as he described cattle drives and prairie storms far worse than the gentle rain they were experiencing. "Were you scared?" Emma asked when he described a stampede that had nearly claimed his life. "Terrified," Samuel admitted. "But that's the thing about fear, you can't let it stop you from doing what needs to be done." Callie, listening quietly, found herself drawing parallels to her own situation. The fear of starting over, of trusting again, was real. But so was the necessity of moving forward. Later, when the children had fallen asleep, Samuel moved to sit beside Callie at the edge of their shelter. "Having second thoughts?" he asked gently. She shook her head. "Not second thoughts, just awareness of how much is changing." "Change can be good," he offered, his shoulder warm against hers in the cool evening air. "It can also be terrifying," she countered. Samuel nodded thoughtfully. "When Catherine died, I thought my world had ended. The girls were so young, and I had no idea how to be both mother and father to them. I made plenty of mistakes." "I'm sure you did your best," Callie said softly. "My best wasn't always good enough," he admitted. "But each day I tried to do better than the day before." "That's all any of us can do, isn't it?" Callie thought of her own journey since Daniel's death, the overwhelming grief, the panic of realizing she alone was responsible for her daughter's well-being, the gradual steadying as she found her way forward one step at a time. "Yes," she agreed. "That's all we can do." Their hands found each other in the darkness, fingers intertwining with tentative hope. Silverton appeared on the horizon on the 6th day of travel, a growing town nestled in a valley with mountains rising beyond it. Even from a distance, Callie could see it was larger and more prosperous than Cottonwood Springs, with proper streets and buildings constructed of sawn lumber rather than logs. "What do you think?" Samuel asked as they paused on a ridge overlooking the town. "It's bigger than I expected," she replied honestly, frightened. His tone held no judgment. "A little," she admitted. "But excited too." Samuel smiled. "That's a good combination for new beginnings." Their arrival at Silver Creek Ranch came just before sundown. The foreman's house sat on a small rise overlooking the ranch headquarters, a simple but well-built structure with a covered porch and glass windows. Mr. Callahan, a white-haired man with a weathered face and sharp eyes, was waiting to greet them. "About time you showed up, Adler," he said gruffly, though his expression was more relieved than angry. "Was beginning to think you'd changed your mind." "Just had a slight detour," Samuel explained, helping Callie down from her wagon. "Mr. Callahan, this is Mrs. Thompson and her daughters, Mary and Sarah. They've come to set up a dressmaking business in town." Callahan's eyebrows rose as he took in Callie and her girls, but he nodded politely. "Town could use a good seamstress. My wife's been complaining about having to order everything from Denver." The ranch owner's acceptance of their unusual arrangement eased some of Callie's tension. After showing Samuel the house and discussing ranch business, Callahan surprised them with an invitation. "My wife insists you all come for Sunday dinner tomorrow," he announced. "Says it's only proper to welcome new neighbors." That night, Callie and her daughters stayed in the town's small hotel while Samuel and his girls moved into the foreman's house. The separation felt strange after nearly 2 weeks of constant companionship, but Callie knew it was necessary. Whatever was growing between them needed space and time. The following weeks unfolded in a whirlwind of activity. With Samuel's help, Callie rented a small building on Silverton's Main Street. The front room became her shop, while the back rooms served as living quarters for her and her daughters. Word spread quickly about the new seamstress, and orders began coming in steadily, particularly after Mrs. Callahan commissioned a winter coat and sang Callie's praises to her friends. The girls started at the town school, thriving under the guidance of a proper teacher. Weekends often found them at Silver Creek Ranch, where the Adler girls would play with them while Samuel showed Callie the property, their conversations growing deeper and more personal with each visit. As November turned to December, Callie found herself thinking of Daniel less frequently. The sharp pain of loss had mellowed into a gentle remembrance, a foundation upon which she could build something new without betraying what had come before. One evening, as snow fell softly outside her shop window, Samuel arrived unexpectedly. The girls were at a Christmas pageant rehearsal at the school, giving them a rare moment alone. "I have something to show you," he said, his eyes bright with excitement. "Can you come with me?" Curious, Callie donned her coat and followed him to his wagon. They rode in comfortable silence through the snowy streets until they reached the edge of town, where a small house stood on a generous plot of land. "What is this place?" she asked as he helped her down from the wagon. "It's for sale," he explained, leading her to the porch. "The owner's moving to California. It's bigger than your shop rooms, with plenty of space for a garden come spring. And look." He opened the door to reveal a spacious front room with large windows. "Perfect light for sewing, wouldn't you say?" Callie stepped inside, taking in the clean, empty space. "It's lovely, but I couldn't afford something like this yet." Samuel took a deep breath. "You could if we shared it." Her heart skipped. "Samuel." "I know it's only been 2 months," he said quickly, "but I also know what I feel, Callie. When Catherine died, I thought that part of my life was over. I never expected to find someone who would make me feel this way again." Callie's eyes filled with tears. "I felt the same after Daniel." He took her hands in his. "I'm not trying to replace what you had with him. I'm asking for the chance to build something new together. The girls already love each other like sisters, and I hope that what's growing between us could become something wonderful." "Are you proposing, Samuel Adler?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. He smiled, reaching into his pocket to produce a simple gold band. "I am. I'm asking you to be my wife, to join our families, to make a home where all our children can have dresses and lives fit for joy." The phrase that had first caught her attention now held new meaning, a promise not just of material comfort, but of a life filled with purpose and love. "Yes," she answered, her heart full. "Yes, I will marry you." Their wedding took place on Christmas Eve in Silverton's newly completed church. The girls wore matching dresses that Callie had sewn in secret deep green velvet with satin ribbons, truly dresses fit for joy. Mrs. Callahan played the organ while her husband stood proudly as Samuel's best man. As they exchanged vows, Callie thought of the strange twist of fate that had brought them together: a broken wagon wheel, a widow's struggling homestead, and the simple act of sewing for 2 little girls who needed dresses. From such ordinary beginnings had grown this extraordinary second chance at happiness. Spring found the new Adler family settled in their house at the edge of town. Callie's dressmaking business flourished, while Samuel's position at Silver Creek Ranch became increasingly secure. As old man, Callahan gradually relinquished more responsibility to him. One warm evening, as they sat on their porch watching all 4 girls tend the garden they had planted together, Samuel reached for Callie's hand. "Are you happy, Mrs. Adler?" he asked, using her new name that still brought a smile to her lips whenever she heard it. Callie looked at their blended family, at the home they were building, at the future stretching before them, a future neither of them had believed possible in their darkest days of grief. "More than I ever thought I could be again," she answered truthfully. Samuel kissed her then, a promise of all the days to come, days that would hold challenges and sorrows, certainly, but also abundant joy, sewn stitch by careful stitch into the fabric of their shared life.